thoughts on the philosophy of laughter. Bernard Blackmantle, In Search of a Wife. First visit to the Marigold family. Sketches of the alderman, his lady and daughter. Anecdote of John Liston, and the citizens' dinner party of the immortal Mr. Punch. Some account of the great actor. A street scene, sketched from the life. The wooden drama. The true sublime. You may sing of old Thespis, who first in a cart to the jolly god Bacchus enacted a part, Miss Thalia or Mrs. Melpomene praise, or to light-heeled Terpsichore offer your lays. But pray what are these? Bind them all in a bunch, compared to the acting of Signor Punch. Of Garrick or Palmer or Kemble or Cook, your moderns may whine, or on each write a book, or Matthews or Munden or Fawcett, suppose they could once lead the town as they pleased by the nose. A fig for such actors. Tied all in a bunch, mere mortals, compared to old deified Punch. Not Chester can charm us, nor Foot with her smile, like the first blush of summer, our bosoms beguile, half so well, or so merrily drive Caro away, as old Punch with his Judy in amorous play. Keen, young, and Macready, though thought very good, have heads it is true, but then they're not of wood. Be ye ever so dull, full of spleen or ennui, mighty Punch can enliven your spirits with glee. Not honest Jack Harley, or Liston's rum mug can produce half the fun of his juggety jug. For a right hearty laugh, tie Thorn all in a bunch, not an actor among them like Signor Punch. Bernard Blackmantle. It was the advice of the prophet Tiresias to Menipus, who had traveled over the terrestrial globe, descended into the infernal regions in search of content, to be merry and wise. To laugh at all the busy farce of state, employ the vacant hour in mirth and jest. The merrier the heart, the longer the life, says Burton in his Anatomy of Melancholy. Mirth is the principle of the three Salernitan doctors, doctor, merriman, doctor, diet, and doctor, quiet. The Nepenthes of Homer, the bowl of Rhatenus, and the girdle of Venus are only the ancient types of liveliness and mirth, by the free use of which the mind is dispossessed of dullness, and the cankerworm of care destroyed. Seneca calls the happiness of wealth bractida felicitas, tinfoiled happiness, and in felix felicitas, an unhappy felicity. A poor man drinks out of a wooden dish and eats his hearty meal with a wooden spoon, while the rich man, with a languid appetite, picks his dainties with a silver fork from plates of gold but in oro by bitter venenom. The one rinds health and happiness in his pottered jug, while the other sips disease and poison from his jeweled cup. A good laugh is worth a guinea, to him who can afford to pay for it at any time, but it is best enjoyed when it comes gratuitously and unexpectedly, and breaks in upon us like the radiant beams of a summer sun forcing its way through the misty veil of an inland fog. I had been paying a morning visit to a wealthy 58 citizen, Mr. Alderman Marigold and family, at the express desire of my father, who had previously introduced me for the purpose of fixing my affection my attention, to the very weighty merits of Miss Biddy Marigold, spinster. A spoiled child, without personal, but with very powerful attractions to a poor colobs. 2 hours' hard fighting with the alderman had just enabled me to retreat from the persecution of being compelled to give an opinion upon the numerous bubble companies of the time, without understanding more than the title of either. To this succeeded the tiresome pertinacity of Mrs. Marigold's questions relative to the movements, ondits, and fashionable frivolities westward, until fairly wearied out and disgusted, I sat down a lion exhausted, in the window seat, heartily wishing myself like Liston one, safe out of purgatory, when the sound. One John Liston, the comedian, is in private life not less conspicuous for finished pleasantry and superior manners than he is on the stage for broad humor. But nothing can offend the actor more than an invitation given merely in the expectation of his displaying at table some of his professional excellences. John had, on one occasion, accepted an invitation to dine with a wealthy citizen and family. The repast over the wine had circulated. A snug friend proposed the health of Mr. Liston, and John returned thanks with as much dignity as a minister of state eating white bait at Blackwall with the worshipful company of fishmongers. Then came the amiable civilities of the lady of the mansion, evidently intended to ingratiate herself with the actor, the better to secure his assent to her request, but not a muscle of the comedian gave the least encouragement. The little citizens, who were huddled round their mamma and had been staring at the actor in anxious expectation, were growing very impatient. The eldest boy had already recited young Norval's speech to Lady Douglas by way of prologue. But the actor still continued mute, never for a moment unbending to the smirking encouragement of his hostess or the jolly laugh-exciting reminiscences of his ruby-faced host, as, for instance, Lord, Mr. Liston, what a funny figure you looked t'other night in Mall Flagon, or how you made Thorne laugh in Tony Lumpkin. And then, what a fright you was in Mrs. Cheshire. Couldn't you give us a touch just now? I do, Mr. Liston, pray do, vociferated a dozen tongues at once, including Mamma, the little Mrs. and Mastery. The children have been kept up 2 hours later than usual on purpose, said the lady mother. Aye, come, my good fellow, reiterated the cit, take another glass, and then give us something funny to amuse the young ones. This was the finishing blow to Liston's offended dignity to be invited to dinner by a fat fleshmonger, merely to amuse his uncultivated cubs, was too much for the nervous system of the comedian to bear. But how to retreat? I have it, thought John, by the cut direct. Rising and bowing therefore to the company, as if intending to yield to their entreaties, he begged permission to retire to make some little arrangement in his dress, to personate vanish. When leaving them in the most anxious expectation for more than half an hour, on ringing the bell, they learned from the servant that Mr. Liston had suddenly vanished by the street door, and was, of course, never seen in that direction more. Tilde 59 tilde of a cracked trumpet in the street arrested my attention. I wonder vat that air instrument can mean, my dear, said Mrs. Alderman Marigold, advancing to the window with eager curiosity. It's worry likely some fire company's men marching to a bean feast, or a Freemason's funeral obscenities, replied the alderman. When another blast greeted our ears with a few notes of "See, the conquering hero comes." "La, mamma," whined out Miss Biddy Marigold, "I declare, it's that filthy fellow Punch coming afore our window with his imperence. I prognosticated how it vowed be, then the alderman patronized him last week by throwing ave a whole shilling upon his fooleries." "You've no taste for fun, Biddy," replied the alderman, at the same time making his daughter and myself a substitute for crutches, by resting a hand upon each shoulder. "I never laid out a shilling better in the whole course of my life. A good laugh beats all the French medicine, and drives the gout out at the great toe. I mean to pension Mr. Punch at a shilling a week to squeak before my window of a Saturday, in preference to paying 6 guineas for a tilde 60 tilde box to hear all that outlandish squeaking at the Hopera." "La, pa, how ungenteel," said Miss Biddy. "I declare you're bringing quite a new sense to all the square. Vat with your hurdy-gurdy Vonian, French troubadours, and barrel organ grinders, nobody has no peace not at all in the neighborhood." During this elegant colloquy, the immortal Mr. Punch had reared his checkered theater upon the pavement opposite. The Confederate showman had concealed himself beneath the woolen drapery, and the Italian comedian had just commenced his merry note of preparation by squeaking some of those little snatches of tunes, which act with talismanic power upon the locomotive faculties of all the peripatetics within hearing, attracting everybody to the traveling stage, young and old, gentle and simple. All the crowd seem as if magic chained them to the spot, and each face exhibits as much anxiety, and the mind, no doubt, anticipates as much or more delight, than if they were assembled to see Charles Kemble, Young, and Macready, all three acting in one fine tragedy. There is something so indescribably odd and ridiculous about the whole paraphernalia of Mr. Punch that we are irresistibly compelled to acknowledge the superiority of the lignum vitae rosseus over the histrionic core of mere flesh and blood. The eccentricity of this immortal personage, his foreign, funny dialogue, the whim and strange conceit exhibited in his wooden drama, the gratuitous display, and the unrestricted laugh he affords all combine to make Mr. Punch the most popular performer in the world. Of Italian origin, he has been so long domiciled in England that he may now be considered naturalized by common consent. Indeed, I much question if a greater misfortune could befall the country than the removal or suppression of Mr. Punch and his laugh-provoking drolleries. It would be considered a national calamity, but mirth protect tilde 61 tilde tilde us from such a terrible mishap. Another sound from an old cracked trumpet, something resembling a few notes of arm, ye brave, and an accompaniment by the great actor himself of a few more, tut, tut, tutura, lura, lose, in his own original style, have now raised excitement to the highest pitch of expectation. The half-inflated lungs of the alderman expand by anticipation, and his full, foggy breathings upon the window glass have already compelled me more than once to use my handkerchief to clear away the mist. The assembled group, waiting the commencement of his adventures, now demands my notice. What a scene for my friend Transit! I shall endeavor to depict it for him. The steady-looking old gentleman in the fire-shovel clerical castor. How sagaciously he leers round about him to see if he is likely to be recognized. Not a countenance to whom he is known, he smiles with self-complacency at the treat he is about to enjoy, plants himself in a respectable doorway for 3 reasons. First, the advantage from the rise of the step increasing his altitude. Second, the security of his pockets from attacks behind. And third, the pretense, should any Goth to whom he is known observe him enjoying the scene, that he is just about to enter the house and has merely been detained there by accident. Excellent apologist, how ridiculous excessive delicacy, avaunt. Give me a glorious laugh and throw affectation to the dogs, I'll have none of it. Now the farce begins. Up starts the immortal hero himself and makes his bow. A simultaneous display of broad grins welcomes his felicitous entree. And for a few seconds the scene resembles the appearance of a popular election candidate, Sir Francis Burdett, or his colleague, Little Cam Hobhouse, on the hustings in Covent Garden. Nothing is heard but one deafening shout of clamorous approbation. Observe the butcher's boy has stopped his tilde 62 tilde tilde horse to witness the fun spite of the despairing cook who waits the promised joint. And the jolly lamplighter, laughing hysterically on the top of his ladder, is pouring the oil from his can down the backs and into the pockets of the passengers beneath, instead of recruiting the parish lamp, while the sufferers are too much interested in the exhibition to feel the trickling of the greasy fluid. The baker, careless of the expectant owner's hot dinner, laughs away the time until the pie is quite cold, and the blushing little servant maid is exercising 2 faculties at once, enjoying the frolics of Signor Punch and inventing some plausible excuse for her delay upon an expeditious errand. How closely the weather-beaten tar yonder clasps his girl's waist. Every amorous joke of Signor Punch tells admirably with him, till between laughing and pressing, Pole is at last compelled to cry out for breath, when Jack only squeezes her the closer, and with a roaring laugh vociferates, "My toplights. What the devil will that fellow Punch do next, Pole?" The milkman grins unheedful of the cur who is helping himself from out his pail, and even the heavy-laden porter, sweating under a load of merchandise, heaves up his shoulders with laughter, until the ponderous bale of goods shakes in the air like a rocking stone. See plate, inimitable actor. Glorious Signor Punch. Show me among the whole of the dramatis persona in the patent or provincial theaters a single performer who can compete with the mighty wooden Rossius. The alderman's eulogium on Mr. Punch was superlatively good. "I love a comedy, Mr. Blackmantle," said he, "better than a tragedy because it makes one laugh, and next to good eating, a hearty laugh is most desirable. Then I love a farce still better than a comedy, because that is more provokingly merry, or broader as the critics have it. Then, sir, a pantomime beats both comedy and tilde 63 tilde tilde farce hollow. There's such lots of fun and shouts of laughter to be enjoyed in that from the beginning to the end. But, sir, there's one performance that eclipses all these tragedy, comedy, farce, and pantomime put together, and that is Mr. Punch for a right-down, jolly, split-my-side burst of laughter. He's the fellow. Name me any actor or author that can excite the risibilities of the multitude, or please all ages, orders, and conditions, like the squeaking pipe and mad waggeries of that immortal, merry-faced itinerant. If any man will tell me that he possesses genius or the mellow affections, and that he can pass Punch, nor cast one longing, lingering look behind, then I say that man's made of impenetrable stuff, and being too wise for whimsicality is too phlegmatic for genius, and too crabbed for mellowness. Mark, what a set of merry, open-faced rogues surround Punch, who peeps down at them as cunningly as a magpie peeping into a marrow bone. How luxuriantly they laugh, or stand with their eyes and mouths equally distended, staring at the minikin effigy of fun and fantasy, thinking, no doubt, he been the greatest wight on earth. And certainly he has not his equal as a positive, dogmatic knock-me-down argument monger, a daredevil, an embodied phantasmagoria, or frisky infatuation. I have often thought that Punch might be converted to profitable use by being made a speaking Pasquin, and, properly instructed, might hold up his restless quarterstaff, in terrorem, over the heads of all public outragers of decency. And by opening the eyes of the million who flock to his orations, enlighten them, at least, as much as many greater folks, who make more noise than he, and who, tilde 64 like him, often get laughed at, without being conscious that they are the subjects of merriment. The very name of our old friend Punch inspires us in our social moments. What other actor has been commemorated by the potential cup? Is not the sacred bowl of friendship dedicated to the wooden hero? Would you forget the world, its cares, vexations, and anxieties? Sip of the mantling, mirth-inspiring cordial, and all within is jollity and gay delight. For Punch cures the gout, the colic, and the tisic, and it is to every man the very best of physic. Honest, kind-hearted Punch, I could write a volume in thy praise, and then, I fear, I should leave half thy merits untold. Thou art worth 100 of the fashionable kickshaws that are daily palmed upon us to be admired. And thy good-humored efforts to please at the expense of a broken pate can never be sufficiently praised. But now the curtain rises, and Mr. Punch steals from behind his 2-foot drapery. The very tip of his arched nose is the prologue to a merry play. He makes his bow to the multitude and salutes them with all the familiarity of an old acquaintance. What a glorious reception does he meet with from an admiring audience! And now his adventures commence. His dear Judy, the partner of his life, by turns experiences all the capricious effects of love and war. What a true picture of the storms of life! How admirable an essay on matrimonial felicity! Then his alternate uxoriousness to the lady, and his fondlings of that pretty cretur with the family countenance, his chivalrous exploits on horseback, and mimic capering round the lists of his checkered tilt-yard, his unhappy differences with the partner of his bosom, and her lamentable catastrophe, the fracas with the sheriff's substitute, and his interview with that incomprehensible personage, tilde 65 the knight of the sable countenance, who salutes him with the portentous address of Shalabala. Shalabala. Shalabala, his successive perils and encounters with the ghost of the martyred Judy, and, after his combat with the great enemy of mankind, the devil himself, propria mart, his temporary triumph, and, finally, his defeat by a greater man than old Lucifer, the renowned Mr. John Ketch. Talk of modern dramas, indeed. Show me any of your Dimmons, Reynolds, Dibdins, or Croleys that can compare with Punkiana in the unities of time, place, costume, and action, intricate and interesting plot, situations provokingly comical and effective, and a catastrophe the most appallingly surprising and agreeable. Then his combats aux batons are superior even to Bradley and Blanchard. But the ne plus ultra of his exploits, the cream of all his comicalities, the grand event, is the ingenious trick by which Mr. Punch, when about to suffer on the scaffold, disposes of the executioner and frees himself from purgatory by persuading the unsuspecting hangman, merely for the sake of instruction to an uninitiated culprit, to try his own head in the noose. Punch, of course, seizes the perilous moment, runs him up to the top of the fatal beam. Mr. John Ketch hangs suspended in the air. Punch shouts a glorious triumphal. The world backs him in his conquest. The old cracked trumpet sounds. To victory the showman's hat has made the transit of the circle, and returns half-filled with the voluntary copper contributions of the happy audience. The alderman drops his tributary shilling, while his fat sides shake with laughter. Even Mrs. Marigold and the amiable Miss Biddy have become victims to the vulgar inspiration, and are laughing as heartily as if they were enjoying the grimaces of the first of Buffos, Signor Ambrosti. And now the curtain falls, and the busy group disperse their several ways. chuckling with delight over the tilde 66 tilde tilde recollections of the mad waggeries of immortal Mr. Punch. All hail. Thou first great mimic chief, physician to the mind's relief, thrice hail. Most potent Punch. Not Momus self, should he appear, could dim the luster of thy sphere, so hail. All hail. Great Punch. Bernard Blackmantle. The Westminster scholar,